In that simple statement is the key to science.
The first part is just, boring. The first part is same, blah, blah, blah. But when he talks about the Democratic Party, the power, and, it's only 6 minutes. Let's listen.
Common sense.
So we're going to play back some footage from, I think it's Nigel Farage's show.
Let's go now to Hank Schweinkopf, a Democrat strategist, somebody who's worked in the past with Bill Clinton and indeed with Michael Bloomberg. Hank, welcome to GB News. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me in.
Now, can you understand why, Hank, on this side of the pond, we at the moment are vast sections of our media, very senior cabinet ministers, we are, to put it mildly, very unhappy that what we see and what we believe to be our closest ally in the world, at the end of an operation that we've been together with side by side for 20 years, and to be frank, Hank, since 1917, on virtually every major global event, we've worked together, we share intelligence with each other at a high level. And President Biden has unilaterally taken this decision, not conferred with us or indeed NATO allies. And can you understand why we're asking the question, is the special relationship between us and the USA, is it just a fantasy? Doesn't it matter to Biden and the Democrats anymore?
It better start mattering. We're celebrating 80 years really of the Atlantic Charter, the extraordinary relationship in, 5-time meetings between Churchill and Roosevelt that shaped the world and won the battle against the Nazis and fascists throughout the world and created a new democratic surge. And frankly, the relationship becomes even more important now. The threats are just as significant from China, Russia. The UK has been a staunch ally of the United States, and frankly, we should not forget the UK soldiers and members of the NATO alliance who paid with their blood and lives because the Americans asked them to be there. This is the first time the NATO Charter provision calling for others to participate has ever been used in the history of NATO. It's an extraordinary moment, and I think ultimately what will occur is people will come to their senses and understand that the reason why we've been together is to go against the enemies of freedom, and to protect our economic interests. And those economic interests and those enemies of freedom have never been more strong or more ready to attack than they are today.
I get all of those sentiments, and actually I agree with all of them too. What is it that President Biden doesn't get in terms of all of those things? Because frankly, the door, not only do the Taliban have tens of billions of dollars worth of up-to-date American military equipment, but the Chinese Communist Party now have access to vast mineral reserves, and especially lithium, which, if we are going to go down the electric car route, that load that's in Afghanistan becomes very, very important. We're yet to see what role Iran or Russia will play. But how is it, given the import of these things, how is it that a Democrat president has done this, made these decisions, and not even thought for a moment to consult with his allies?
I don't understand it, frankly. I want to go back to something you said a moment ago. The Chinese are far smarter than all of us, for some reason. They've been all over Africa, grabbing up as much cobalt as possible, which with lithium are the major ingredients for putting together electric cars, and frankly, using our mobile phones and other related equipment. They are doing something that no one's paying attention to, and the West is asleep and has not done what's appropriate. As to the Democrats, the United States is going through a major demographic shift. And the danger here is that in that shift, which is much more pronounced, we're becoming a non-white nation, and the interests of the people who are dominating the Democratic Party are in Africa, the Caribbean, in Asia, less in Europe, but they'd better wake up. If anything happens to the Mediterranean basin, the Brits and the Americans understood this. Note the Truman Doctrine in 1948. If anything happens to those great waterways, note the convoys that fed the Brits and kept the Americans in action in the beginning of the Second World War and prepared the British to at least begin to do what they had to do to stop Hitler. Anything happens to those sea lanes, anything happens to that commerce, the world will be a much different place. And our children, not necessarily those of us on this call, but our children will likely be eating grass. That's the facts of life. And the Americans will ultimately wake up or they won't. I think they will.
I've not heard it explained in this way before. So the big demographic shifts that are going on within America, that are reflected within the Democrat Party means a change, a shift of emphasis and priorities, yeah?
No question about it. You can see it. You're going to start seeing it in activities by the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which is now run, the United States House of Representatives, forgive me, committee chair Greg Meeks, who is an African-American man from New York, and his priorities may be different. That's of the norm. The question is, will people understand the larger worldview? The Chinese are beating us, all of us in Africa right now. The Chinese want to do what they want to do. You know, it's the Thucydides trap. Some may say it's not worth looking at, but nothing's changed since Athens and Sparta went at it a long, long time ago. And the power that wasn't in power wanted to take that power. And that's what we face. And when the Americans finally wake up and understand that, it will be an important day for the Brits, the same way that the UK stood with the Americans and the Americans stood with the UK against the Soviet threat and protecting NATO to protect the UK. Nothing's changed. The only question is when the alarm clock will go off in the American brain.
So we need to reset this relationship, Frank, yeah?
We need to reset it to make sure the Americans understand how significant it is for their future, not just only for the wonderful people of the UK.
Well, you couldn't have put that more clearly or with more passion. Thank you very much indeed, Hank, for joining us here on GB News.
Common sense.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong.
I want to close my idea about U.S. domestic politics. 2016 and 2020. In 2016, it was about domestic politics. It was coming from the Tea Party. Trump beat the party first, and then the election, with a big help from Facebook. And Facebook was like happy to support either party. Was not really interested in nothing in particular. 2016. By 2020, everything changed. China got into the game. Facebook, Google, Amazon, all between these 4 years, they have developed back ends and buildings of artificial intelligence, and trying to understand the human behavior. By 2020, Facebook became one of the big helpers of one of those parties, against one party and pro another party. Twitter directly, banned him. Trump went straight to ban him. But what I'm going to say is, by 2020, U.S. politics became international because we are all affected by what's going on in those three companies regarding artificial intelligence developed in China. Why they go to China? Because of the legal frame. They are free to go and experiment, to understand human behavior, trying to predict human behavior, or trying to influence human behavior. By then, it doesn't matter if it's in US or any other place in the globe, because, they're up in the cloud. It doesn't matter where you are. Bottom line, by 2020, Mark Zuckerberg put $400 million to influence the swing states, not only in legislaturas, to change the rules, how to vote, how not to vote, but also to lay down these ballot boxes, in certain places. Anyway, he was influencing this. So that was a big change in politics and sociology.
Right. Yeah, definitely it's been a quantum leap in the last 4 years. I actually heard something really interesting this week, which was Eric Clapton gave an interview. I don't know if you heard this, but he was complaining about the vaccine he got, right? He got the AstraZeneca vaccine. He got both doses. And after the first dose, he says he started shaking and, feeling really lousy. He had a huge fever. He felt horrible about it. And he nevertheless gave himself the second dose, thinking of his family, et cetera, et cetera. And he was out for a week. He couldn't do his tour he was going to do. This just came out. This was an interview on YouTube. And I heard him say, well, I'm not going to take the booster because it's obvious that my whole immune system has been, thrown out of whack. And there's no way I'm going to take this third vaccine because everything that I touch that is hot really like hurts my hand. Anything that's cold, it really feels strange. He's just not feeling himself or like himself. He's 74 now. He's up there, but it really did a job on him, the jab. So this authoritarianism that's coming up, I think Huxley was right over Orwell. People, they're choosing this. The great majority is choosing this. It's not imposed on them, and they're actually angry at those of us that question things and ask for science, such as Senator Rand Paul, who speaks about natural immunity over the vaccines, which wear off after 6 to 8 months. In Israel, they're already going for the 4th booster shot, and it really, it's not making any common sense. That's what's going on, and this is a change I think that took part from 2016, like you said, to 2020. I think the deep state is back, and they're going for everything.
Yeah, the other thing about the speech, which it obviously picked up. He's been listening to certain people and trying to incorporate certain aspects into his speech to try and sound like he's the man of the people. By suggesting, you should go to your doctors, and doctors, you play the front line on this role of convincing the non-vaxxers to get vaxxed. Now, he's using an argument to get people to get vaxxed by saying if the people who are not vaxxed don't get vaxxed, they are literally harming or killing the people who are vaxxed. Now, how is that a selling point for getting vaxxed?
Exactly.
Because that means the vax does not work.
Right. If you're vaxxed, why should you worry? Why worry about it?
And that's the he's got it all mixed up. It's totally the wrong way to sell.
But I do have a point. You are just only focusing on common sense. It is common sense that what Biden was saying, it doesn't make any sense at all. Why? I was born the year that the man landed on the moon, 1969.
Me too.
Since I was born, the humans on the planet duplicated. We are the double amount. We are like beyond 8 billion people. So if you want to put common sense in Biden words, I would say, is humanity at risk, or at least, decrease because of this pandemic? No, it's the opposite. Well, we are more people than 1 year ago. So what is the tragedy? Where is the tragedy of this? So common sense, it doesn't make common sense on Biden's word. Then we got to go beyond. Basically, we are talking about transfer of power. That is what he's looking for. He's trying to first ask for compassion, and now he's threatening for all those people who doesn't want to follow the rules. So now we have to enforce for your own good. But basically, we have to enforce. So to get common sense out of Biden's words, basically he's asking for power beyond democracy. That was the point. And why? Well, to get rid of Trump, they need COVID, whether came from a bat or from a bat in a lab or from a lab and a bat, it doesn't matter. Basically, Trump got killed by COVID. And that came up with Biden. Biden became to power only and just because of COVID. When he got there, there's a struggle into the Democratic Party, and this, the grassroots, basically the majority of the DNC, is happy